Hey everyone, it's Howie and Kaylyn here again. I hope you're having an amazing day. For those of you that don't know us, Kaylyn and I are partners at PureMind, at-home ketamine therapy. And today we're going to be answering some questions from members in our program. So if you're seeing this within our program, we look forward to answering your questions. And if you're seeing this on YouTube or somewhere else, hopefully this can support you too, or answer any questions that you might have if you're thinking about this type of approach for mental and emotional health. So, Kaylyn, I know you have the questions. Do you want to start off with the first one?
Yeah, let's dive in. So the first question reads, how do I stay connected to my body when it feels safer to go back into my mind?
It's a really, really amazing question. And it's something that is really this process of embodiment. And this can be really challenging because our mind has been that safe haven when things have been overwhelming or uncomfortable for us in our bodies. So that safe haven is something that we've relied on oftentimes our entire lives. The thing is, though, if our mind is really good at creating a safe future or an idea about life so that we don't have to feel, we're kind of in a way bypassing our emotions, which creates this unconscious suppression of what's going on inside of our body. So there's really two options here. You can start intentionally bringing your awareness into your body and understanding that it feeling overwhelming or uncomfortable is totally fine and it's part of the process. That doesn't mean you have to pretend to like it or anything like that. It's not about liking it. It's about not abandoning yourself in it, whether you like it or not. And I know Kaylyn and I talk a lot about this because we have little kids. It's like your toddler throwing a tantrum. You don't have to like it, but are you still going to hold them and take care of them when they need you? Yes. If you're a loving parent, right? Yes. So it's the same thing with your body. As soon as we kind of drop the idea that we have to like it or somehow we're doing it wrong, I think that's a really good invitation into the body and out of the mind. Versus sometimes it's like, I have to be doing this perfectly and I have to love it and I have to be grateful for it and all this stuff. If we can kind of relax that a little, I find that sitting with the body becomes a lot easier because there's less resistance.
Yeah, I love that. And yes to absolutely everything you said. And I feel like this is such a great question because this really is the root of the work for most of us who come into this space is how do I reconnect with my body? How do I feel safer in my body? So just you having this awareness that it feels safer to leave is a beautiful place to start. And if I was just to even simplify this even smaller, it's just through presence and awareness, right? We create a sense of safety every time that our body knows that it's safe to feel, that we're no longer going to abandon ourselves, like Howie had mentioned. And it's okay if it's not perfect, right? Because it's a practice, it's a muscle, right? We have to teach our awareness, our consciousness that it's safe to be here. So, if in the beginning you notice that you can start being in your body and then you find yourself disassociating or leaving, not having that layer of judgment or shame, but again, just beginning to notice, oh, there it goes again. And how can I bring myself back? What am I noticing? And it's the more that you do that in this place of curiosity and exploration, just noticing, just bringing awareness, just being present, the safer it's going to feel and the larger your capacity is going to be with yourself. So, to just answer your question, how do I stay connected to my body? Through presence, right? Through awareness, right? And again, the more that you do that, the larger the container is going to be to hold your aliveness. So,
Exactly. And to piggyback on that idea of awareness and it being a practice, it's like, of course, you're still going to dissociate and go unconscious. Sometimes when we start becoming more aware, we start creating almost this like spiritual ego of needing to be perfect in our presence
yes.
and awareness. It's like, you're going to oscillate. Like, you do not need to be neurotic about it. One thing that's really helped me, and I know has helped a lot of our clients, is just the idea of doing daily check-ins, a few times a day. Check in with your body. Body, how you doing? What do you need? Is there anything you need to communicate to me right now? Like, I'm available. And sometimes it's like, I need water, I need food, I need to go to the bathroom, I need some movement, I need some sunlight. It'll tell you, right? And then you go do those things. But the rest of the time, you should be living your life. Like, you don't have to be like helicopter parenting your body. Like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? It's like, get away from me. So it's about finding that balance where it's like, I check in routinely. I don't wait for a tantrum to check in. I don't wait for crisis to become present. It's something that's baked into my schedule. You start doing that, you'll start noticing like, wow, my body's communicating things all the time. But
Yes.
my tendency has been to wait until it's throwing a fit before I pay attention. Maybe I could pay attention when it's having fun. Maybe I could pay attention when it's bored. So when we start making it more part of our schedule as opposed to a reaction to a tantrum, I find that to be really helpful. And then you kind of keep the log clean, so to speak, in that you don't have this big laundry list of things that need to be communicated because you're ignoring your body all the time. So rather than, because what I used to do is like I'd wake up and I'd meditate for 2 hours and like I'd be doing all this stuff. And not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that if you enjoy it, but I was doing it like from this micromanagement perspective. And what I found now is that if I check in more frequently and consistently, even if it's for 1 minute, that actually seems to build a lot more safety and trust within my body.
Yeah, and I will just say, just to close this thought, something tangible that you guys could take away would be to set an alarm on your phone, right? You could set it for once a day, twice a day, whatever, feels aligned for you in the beginning, and have that be that reminder to take a minute, to stop what you're doing, to check in, to breathe. What does my breath look like? What is the pattern of my heart? What are the sensations, emotions present? And just getting into that practice is a great way to start this. Um,
Exactly. The
let's go
timer on
into
the phone is perfect.
Yeah. Let's go into this one because I feel like it ties into it as well. Is it normal to feel resistance to going deeper in my sessions? What does that mean? Why is it here?
Yeah, totally ties into what we just talked about. It is normal to go deeper. I would say, like in a phase of it, you go deeper. I don't necessarily think you're just on this never ending thing of just going deeper and deeper and deeper. I think that, yeah, for a period, as you become more embodied, you are kind of going deeper because your consciousness is merging more deeply into your body as things get released and revealed and whatnot. So it's a really positive sign, I think, if you start touching those areas that are uncomfortable within
Yeah.
yourself, because it shows that you have created enough safety for those things to be expressed. In my own personal journey, it's just not at the forefront of my mind, the idea of going deeper as much. It's like you can start to get kind of to a stabilized place where you deal with what comes up, but it doesn't have to be this thing that you have to have this deep understanding of. It's just like I'm here living my life. So it's weird, like it's a weird paradox, but there's definitely a phase that I had where I started on the shallow end and went very deeply into the body. It was an overwhelming process during a lot of it, but you do come out of it and it does stabilize and it kind of creates a new way of you relating to your life.
Yeah. So this one particularly is more from the lens of like the resistance to the deepness, I think. And you know, what I want you to understand too is that the resistance isn't a bad thing. It's whatever you're making the resistance mean that can really create more of that roadblock. Because, what we know about our body, what we know about the psyche, right? The nervous system is that it's incredibly wise, it's incredibly intelligent. So if you notice that you start having these resistances or almost like these protective parts start showing up, there's a deeper aspect of yourself or a part of you that just needs a little bit more support, right? So really getting closer with that resistance, like what do you need to feel more supported, right? How can I make this feel safe for you to go deep? Right? Because again, many times the resistance, at least in my opinion, is really when we're coming up against that hard edge or hard truth of who we believed ourselves to be or what we believed is possible, who we thought we were in the world, so on and so forth. And it's like right when you come to like breaking through that glass ceiling, that resistance is going to get extra loud because it wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you the same. It doesn't want you to experience pain. And for that, that hones into everything familiar, right? Everything in your comfort zone. So, absolutely, it's normal to feel resistance in going deeper because you're meeting different parts of yourself, your power, your aliveness, right? Who you are in the body, right? The truth of who you are. So, don't take it as a negative thing. Like, take this as a signpost that, like, you're ready to meet or up level in a way that maybe you haven't yet before. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I love everything you just said because resistance, like, it's not there by accident. There's a point in your life where you really were a victim, so the resistance did keep you safe. So we have to honor that part. I think a lot of this healing work gets so binary, like, that part of my life was wrong and this part's right. It's like, no, that was right at the time. It's just things change. So is it relevant to you now? That's like more, it's relevancy versus right or wrong. So
Yes.
your mind at the time where you really were a victim, like let's say you're a kid and your parents neglect you. Well, every time you felt overwhelmed and expressed that and you got spanked, it's like, of course, you're not going to want to feel that way because you create a correlation between the feeling and then what happens to you. So, like, duh, we're going to resist feeling that because we think it results in a consequence. So, like, that makes sense. I think we have to get to a point of like, well, duh, I'm doing that. Like, who cares? Of course. Like, look what I've been through. How would I not be doing that? So, thank you, mind, for keeping me safe all this time. But I'm no longer under the thumb of those neglectful parents. So, I don't have to actually do that anymore. So, thank you for the time I did need to do it. Now I don't have to. So at that point, if you can actually honor the resistance, it doesn't have to fight against you. Because what we do is we resist the resistance. We're like, this resistance shouldn't be here. If you stop that fight, then the resistance kind of just goes away on its own because you're no longer playing that game of being the victim because you're no longer in the environment. And I'm not saying that that's exclusive just to kids with parents. I understand you can be in toxic, abusive relationships and all these things. But for most people, just about everyone, when they're young, they experience this neglect or they experience these things where they have to dissociate to protect themselves. So if we can honor that part and really be grateful for it, so much of the resistance is already going to go away. And then if you can also tie in, what's wrong with me being sad? What's wrong with me being overwhelmed? Like, who cares? Like, what's a big deal? You actually ask yourself that question. It's like, well, what is the big deal? Like, I care about what other people think about me. Like, that's why I don't want to come off this way. Like, that's okay if that's where it is. But I think kind of just getting curious about it, like you mentioned earlier, brings kind of sheds a light of like, why do I care? Like, why
Yeah.
can't my body just be sad or overwhelmed? So I think there's a lot of fun you can have with this process. I still face a lot of resistance. I just don't care that I do.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that piggybacks into what you make it mean, right? Because it sounds like you have this complete other perspective on the resistance and why it's showing up, right? So again, I think the resistance is always going to point you into where there's an aspect of you craving alignment. And if you get curious, you get intimate, you get closer with it, more of that will be revealed. So the resistance itself isn't a bad thing. It's what you make it mean and what you do because of it. Um,
Exactly.
I think this is a good one because I know this one has come up a few times on our coaching calls as well. What should I do if I don't remember much from my session?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because when we're used to the idea of needing to understand things conceptually, not feeling like we have that land for us, we sometimes feel like we're not getting benefit from the experience. So I think the first thing is just noticing that. Like, it's okay to be frustrated that you don't understand something right now. Again, like, I don't have to resist that part of it. It's like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I'd rather understand, but I'm not. Perfect. That's honest. I would say as you start to work more with the body, it's more of the idea of you find out as you go versus like
Yes.
needing to know in the moment. It's more of a hindsight thing. It's like you walk, it's like if you're walking down a trail and you look back and you're like, whoa, like look how far I've come. And like now it makes sense. Like there was a pattern to this whole thing. But we try to understand the pattern before we've actually lived it. And I think that's where we're kind of running from more of the survival programming, trying to stay safe by prophesizing the future. Versus like, I am safe. So who really needs to know the next step? I'm going to find that out as I live my life. And then when I look back at my life, I'll get to see the pattern. So I think that little flipping of it is helpful in surrendering some of the idea of needing to understand now.
Yeah, I love that. And I will just say something important to remember is that regardless if you have a psychedelic experience or you remember a lot about it, it doesn't mean that you're not receiving the therapeutic benefits, right? Those are happening behind the scenes, behind your conscious awareness, whether you know what's happening or not. So, like, that's an important piece to hold that, like, even if I don't know, like, I can trust the medicine and I can trust myself, and we have to also remember that when we're in altered states, the way that our body organizes, process, remembers, just stores information is completely different than our normal conscious waking window. And we always talk about this with our clients. It's like you have to kind of learn how to essentially like speak a different language. right? So if in the beginning you're having a hard time, putting meaning to it or remembering a lot from it, my biggest invitation is to check in with yourself and just begin to notice, is there a shift in my energy? Is there a change in my mood, in my behavior, in the decisions I'm making? We always encourage our clients to keep a journal because, kind of like Howie's saying, sometimes, you don't really get the full picture. You get the breadcrumbs and you get the pieces. So sometimes, when you're journaling, you can even, this makes no sense. I'm not seeing anything. And then, 5 journeys later, it's like you start to see this red thread beginning to form and, why that was taking place or where it was guiding you. So, you know, just knowing that where you're at is completely okay, the way that our body opens and receives and just really cultivates relationship with the medicine is unique and beautiful to all of us. And if right now you're in a season where your body and your energy and your system is kind of getting like acclimated to these altered states and working with this, like just trust the process and keep going because each session will build on itself like building blocks like bricks and one day you will have the house or the bigger picture. So just keep going. Do
Right.
you want to add anything?
100%. That's how it is. And I remember for myself personally with the sessions, I was the same way. Like, I want to understand everything. I was so excited about learning about it. It wasn't like just safety, it was like fun too. Like, I like understanding this stuff. Like, it's interesting. So I get the frustration with that. But there was a point for me where it's like, I just don't see how even getting the information is that helpful for my next step.
Yeah.
I just like my life's gone far enough to where I can look back and been like the times I really knew didn't help me that much compared to the times I didn't know because I'm still just taking one step at a time, still moment to moment anyway. So it's like why do I feel like I need to understand this so deeply? And I found for myself it was mainly from a place of safety. If I understand this better, then I won't have to experience pain. And it's like, well, that didn't work for me. Like I still experience pain.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
and it's like I might experience pain, I might experience joy. Like I don't know. I'm walking a path. Like we're gonna find out as I keep going. But it is weird when you look back at hindsight or you look back at your journal and you start to see things connecting.
Hmm.
It's really weird because it's a lived truth,
Yeah.
not a prophetic truth about what should happen, right? Or what could happen. It's like, no, I actually live this and I get to see the path that linked it all together. And that's a lot more grounded than like living in the idea world around understanding.
And just last thing to tie that in because I think what you said, yes, so beautifully, and like what you're speaking to is the process of becoming, right? It's a difference in knowing a lot and having insight and having information and really becoming the embodiment of that transformation. And I know for you and I, that's something that we really stand for and value. Like we don't want to just, give you quick relief and then like have you leave. We want to give you the tools, the resources, right? Opportunities to become somebody different within it. So I just love that. Let's go to the next one. Why do I feel emotional waves days after a session?
So I think again, all this ties in really nicely. So the emotional waves, I mean, we're always experiencing emotional waves, like naturally. That's the
Yeah.
rhythm, high tide, low tide, right? Like that's just the way it works. What ends up happening is we start to take credit for the waves, meaning high tide, I must have done something right to feel good. And low tide, what did I do wrong to feel like crap? Versus like, this is just how it works. Like has nothing to do with you, right? Of course, we can do things that deplete us. And of course, we can understand things that are generally supportive of us. I'm not saying that, but there's a rhythm to life with the energy, the way it works. So the ketamine can kind of bring that more to the surface and make it seem more obvious because you have less resistance to that. And as you're stabilizing and acclimating, like Kaylin mentioned, it might seem more intense in the short term. Like, oh, I'm feeling really up and then I'm feeling really down. Well, you're getting to see that rhythm with more clarity. And then if you can actually really trust that rhythm, then you can have a plan. It's like high tide and low tide. I think what's coming to mind right now is you think of fishermen that really understand the tides and they make their moves according to the tides and according to the season. You can kind of start to get in the same rhythm like, okay, I'm in a lower energy point. How do I support myself
Yeah.
during low tide? Oh, I'm in a higher energy point. What do I do during high tide? So you can start actually having a plan instead of just assuming that it should always be high tide or taking credit for when it is.
Yeah, I love that. And I will say it's very, very common to have emotional waves post session, right? This is, again, like very intelligent, very wise, and on purpose. And, a lot of people come to this work and want to work with ketamine in specific because of its ability to heighten neuroplasticity, right, in the brain. But we also have to realize that with that, there's also this sense of purging and purification that happens when your body feels safe enough to feel, to be witnessed. And a lot of times we do hear this from our clients that, all of a sudden, they feel like they're feeling things more than they've ever felt in their life, or things start to feel a little bit harder, or, why do things start feeling harder before they get better, right? Like we've heard all this. And these aren't signs that the therapy isn't working for you. These are actually signs that it's working really well for you, because all that stored trauma, emotion, survival patterns, right? It lives in the body. So the medicine's giving it essentially like these pathways and channels to finally be felt. And for many of us, it's been years of suppression and years where we haven't listened. So it can feel like these emotional waves where we're happy, we're sad, we're angry, right? We had a client the other day on a call said, I feel like I'm going crazy. It's just all these feelings. That's beautiful, right? Just notice. And you don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You're not doing something wrong. It's just creating space to feel, to be with your body again, presence, awareness. How do I create enough safety where I don't have to leave myself when I'm having these emotional waves? How do I become resourced enough that I can handle it? Right? Because there's something cathartic happening, right? It is this energy, this emoting from the body that actually is going to create that sense of feeling lighter or being on that like high wave, right? So it's perfectly normal, I think, is the biggest thing that I want you to know. And it's actually a sign that your body is opening and responding beautifully to the medicine.
100%. Sorry, there's a storm buzzer or
The
something.
confirmation
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, hurricanes, tornadoes coming. Um, but yeah, totally to your point, getting in touch with the stuff that has been suppressed. Because if you think about it, if at some point in your life you decided high tide means right, low tide means wrong, then what you end up doing is you're propping up high tide. You're propping up elevated emotions, which means on the contrary, you're suppressing everything that's not that. So all of that has been backlogged in your system. So as soon as you start going deeper, that stuff needs to be expressed because it's rebalancing you into the rhythm of life.
Yes.
And as you start to come more online in your emotional body, then you can actually start seeing it as a part of you, but not the totality of who you are. So it's like just like the ocean's part of the earth, it's not the whole earth, right? It has its tides. So you can actually have more of a posture towards the way you feel emotionally, meaning peace isn't I always feel like blissed out and zen. Peace is no matter what tide I'm experiencing, I don't have to add layers of resistance to it because I know that it'll change. It's just the natural rhythm. So can I just kind of get out of my own way of what's naturally happening? And the thing I love that Kaylin always says is how do I support myself and have the resources so that I can stay stable through this
Yes.
process? If you're in a low tide and you're struggling, great. That's part of it. We all go through that. But we don't have to let the waves crush us. It's like, what do I need to feel supported during this part of my life, during this phase I'm in? And
What's
if,
your life
and if we're not
coach?
viewing it as a problem, like, God, look at me, just created it, manifested the crappiest timeline, it's like that has nothing to do with you. We're all going to go through tough times. But the ones that say it doesn't really have anything to do with me, this is going to result in something that helps me grow. How can I support myself in the process of it so that I can move through it more gracefully? That seems to be more of the posture towards it versus like trying to maintain a static state of joy. It's like good luck. Like you will burn yourself out if you do that.
I love it. That's so true. All right, let's go to the next one. This is a great one because we hear this one a lot too. What is the difference between relief and real transformation?
So I actually don't think they're that different because relief, like again, we always look, not always, but so many of us from survival programming, we start to look at things as black and white. very binary. So like if I want relief, then somehow I'm selling out on real transformation. They're part of the same thing. If you're really struggling, of course you want relief. Who doesn't want a relief when they're drowning, right? Like, give me a break. So relief is wise when you're really struggling. So we have to pull ourselves out first. I just think that the challenge becomes when relief becomes the long-term objective, because again, that's like trying to prop up an elevated emotion. I should always feel relief. Otherwise, I'm not doing it right. So we start to create resistance towards the natural rhythm again when we're chasing relief, because when we do that too long, now we're moving right back into emotional suppression again. Versus like, yeah, if you've been stuck in low tide and drowning, you need relief first. That's going to be the tide shifting again. But relief by definition is temporary. It is
Yeah.
not a static state for the rest of your life where you're just going to feel expansive all the time. So yes, use relief, enjoy the relief, enjoy the high tide, but also understand the tide will turn, but that you can do it. So I think they really go together, and transformation isn't about not wanting relief. This isn't about white knuckling things. It's about really honoring what you need, but also understanding at what point does the relief become the new God that I'm
Mm,
chasing, because
yeah.
that's where it starts to slip out of balance again.
Yeah. And I love what you said. And for me personally, when I think of relief, I really connect that with resource, right? Because many times when we're seeking relief in particular, it's because we're outside our window of tolerance or we're stuck in survival mode, right? There's something that we feel like we're just operating at the bare minimum, right? So we want that. We're grasping for that relief or a resource. And even healthy nervous systems or people who you could say are healed. I don't think it's ever really done, but for lack of better, explanation, are healed, still have resources, right, in their life that support them to do the work. So when I hear this question being asked, like, what is the difference between relief and real transformation? I think relief can look like how you start to resource yourself. And transformation is more about like shifting your baseline, right? When I'm transforming or I'm becoming, I'm essentially shifting on an identity level, on an energetic level, on a perspective, on consciousness, spiritually, right? There's all these things taking place that are happening to essentially like become me or that new baseline or identity. And relief to me is kind of like the stepping stone to that. So if you are in this phase right now where you are getting relief and you're becoming more resource and you're finding those things essentially to get out of survival or out of activation, great. That's where you start because that's where real transformation can happen. You can't have real transformation while you're still gripping tight and bracing for impact, right? We have to get out of that sense of survival and into sovereignty, into power, into radical responsibility. But the doorway through that always comes through getting relief, becoming resource, becoming more grounded, more stable, right? So to me, they're really connected. And if you're in the phase of relief, great. Allow yourself to feel good, become resource. And then we start looking, how do we take this new sense of relief or feeling, whatever you want to associate it with, and really allow that to become my new baseline? What are the things that I have to do to allow this to really shift something internally? Do you want to say anything to that?
I mean, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, because I think a lot of the practicality sometimes gets thrown away with this type of thing. It's like I'm either really transforming or like I'm chasing relief. Like there's none of that gray area. I'll give you an example. As an entrepreneur, there have been so many times where I've been operating on really thin margins. Like I have no savings, like I'm just barely eking by trying to get things off the ground. And what I realized, like again, hindsight's 2020, is that I could have made choices to give myself a little more margin in those periods that I just didn't want to make. Some things from shame and embarrassment and whatever, but like I could have leaned on more support during that time. I chose to kind of do it on my own and learn the hard way, and that's fine too. But the point is, I wasn't choosing those resources. Like I wasn't really sourced, so I constantly felt like I was in this state of hypervigilance and like I'm one crisis away from collapse, which is a really tough place to live over a long period of time. So that's a gnarly path. I know a lot of us tuning in are in similar paths where it's just like, God, I did the most intense ride at the amusement park. But there's also an option to be like, look, practically, I could have got like a part-time job, for instance. Even if I don't like it, it's like, this is going to give me enough to feel stable in building this, to not feel like I'm just one bad situation away from being totally wrecked. So there's ways that we can source ourselves so that we're not living and operating at this constant state of hypervigilance. And so that's just an example in business, but this goes for every single area. Am I giving myself the proper conditions for me to be supported through challenging times? We're all going to go through the ups and downs, but it really comes down to that sourcing and that nourishment. Are you giving that to yourself? Because if you're not, it's going to be really freaking hard.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we can control from that perspective too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's go to the next one. How do I begin to trust what's coming up for me instead of constantly questioning it?
Again, all these really seem to be lining up today, which is cool. So you don't need to put pressure on yourself to like just get over it, right? It's okay to care. It's okay to want to know. We want to honor each part of this because it's all valid. It all comes from somewhere in our experience of life. So like, I want to know. Perfect. I'm frustrated that I don't know, like going back to that question of like, why can't I understand? All of it's fine. Like eventually you will know. But when you move out of the mind and through problem solving and trying to figure it out or guess how the experiment's going to go, you start becoming the scientist that's actually conducting experiments. So you ask the question and you live the answer. It's not you ask the question, find out the answer, then live it. So like we're kind of switching the order. Trusting that is just doing it intentionally. So like, okay, I'm gonna start setting up experiments in my life. And I know, Kaylyn, we've talked a lot about this in the program, but getting intentional as a scientist in your own life. Start getting in the rhythm of asking a question, setting up an experiment. What would happen if I tried this in my life? Go do it and then get feedback from life. That's how you actually find answers. Not by sitting on the couch, what if, and you have 9 million different answers coming. Sometimes we guess right, that's true. But how many times have we been like, this is for sure going to happen, and the exact opposite happens? Like more times than I've guessed right for me over here. So that actually becomes more fun though. Life becomes surprising and miraculous when you're no longer needing to know before it's lived. It's like I get to find out. I get to watch the unfoldment of my life in real time. How cool is that? Like I want to fast forward to the end of the movie to see how it ends. Then what? What's the point?
I will say we're so on sync because you took the words out of my head. But there's also this mantra that came as soon as I read this question, that trust is really just compounded courage. And when I really think about trusting myself, I think of it almost like having like a credit score with myself, right? And like there's a difference when you have these insights and ahas and like all these things happening, and there's a different layer when you actually move with it, when you take action with it. And I think like the more that you do those things where you move, in alignment with what's coming up, you build that trust. It's like every opportunity that you say yes and you take action on what you desire or, something you're thinking about, you build trust within yourself. It's like you expand that muscle, you expand that credit score, right? So it can be something as silly, like, for example, lately I've been really trying to get back into working out. So saying, I'm going to go to the gym today before I start my calls. Okay, well, did I do it? Right? Even though it seems like something small, your body's saying, like, do you stick to your word? Do you have integrity? Are you going to follow through? So, like, looking at where you have been wanting to do something or where you're pretending that you don't know what to do and you know exactly what that thing is, lean into that. Expand on that because that's what's going to build trust for all the bigger things and all the different things in your life. So, I don't know. I just really love that idea of like trust being compounded courage and like
It
how
is.
can you begin to do that.
And and when it comes to courage, because I think when we think of that, it's like almost this idea of taking action beyond your comfort zone. One thing I like about the idea of experimenting is it creates an easier step because it's no longer a personal thing. So, like going to your working out example, it's like, okay, I want to build muscle. Like that's just for whatever reason. You don't need a why for why you care, right? It's just who
Yeah.
cares? I want to build muscle. Perfect. What's the experiment you're going to do? Well, I'm going to lift weights 5 times a week. I'm going to do my cardio. I'm going to get my 10,000 steps every day. I'm going to eat more protein. Great. So now I have my action items that I'm going to do over how long? I'll do it over the next 30 days and we'll start there. Okay, so you had the goal of gaining muscle, like that's what sets the direction of the experiment. You have the action items, but then you're going to have the days where it's like, I don't feel like it, like I don't want to do it. That's where the courage comes in. It's like, I agreed to run this experiment so I could get clear feedback from life. Because if I don't do my part, how am I going to get feedback? Like life's not going to tell me anything if I don't do anything. And this is how we create that momentum. Because when we want to trust this process, we have to be engaged in the process. It's a co-creation. It's not a sit on the couch and just manifest it in your mind thing. As much as we'd like it to be that way, it's just not that way. And as you start doing this, you'll realize this is more fun because it actually gets you participating in your life. You want to just sit there in your mind the whole time and not getting to use your body, it doesn't even make any sense. So I think it absolutely takes courage to start iterating and playing in your life because we've been so conditioned outside of it. But that's really where the fun comes. And that's where you literally not only trust, but that life is going to reveal what it needs to in the process of the experiment. And it's going to give you the feedback that you need.
Yes, I love that. That feels like a good place to complete our session for today. Do you want to add anything before we close it out?
Just one thing I'll add is we're doing these Q&As every 2 weeks for the members of our community. We are going to be uploading the stuff that we do for everyone onto social media as well, because we feel a deep call to support people, even if they're not in our program, with this information. This work's really important to us, and it's a big part of our mission. So we're excited to be expanding the reach there. So definitely tune into the YouTube channel and our other social media accounts for this information.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for tuning in today. We look forward to dropping in with the next Q&A, our next transmission. And if you're not a part of our world yet and you're curious about what our community looks like, our program, you can click into the show notes and we have a link for more info. So until next time.
See everyone.